let us feel our oneness with the Infinite Father. To discuss healing, we have to discuss what's wrong with us. There are three kinds of illnesses. We sometimes think there's just one kind, but there are three kinds, and it is very necessary to know about the three kinds because they're all interrelated. If you have a diseased body, chances are that the mind and the soul are not as they should be. And so there are three kinds of illnesses: physical, mental, and the illnesses of the soul, or spiritual illnesses, if that's what you want to call them. So let us just say a word or two first about physical illnesses. They are three kinds, just to make it very brief. We sometimes have had enough of physical illnesses, but still we have to know something about it. There are three types. There are those which come from toxins and poisons in the body, and these are very important. And these illnesses, the cause of which are toxins and poisons in our bodies, usually come from the absorption of these toxins and poisons through the digestive tract. But you say, my digestion is wonderful. All I have is a cold, or my lungs are all filled up. Why are they filled up? They are filled up because you have disobeyed the hygienic laws of health, and your digestion is not taking care of these substances of which you have taken, and poisons as heat get into the bloodstream. And the bloodstream is filled with these poisons and toxins. Now, what happens? Those toxins and that heat has to get out. And it gets out in the weak point, the weak place, which usually is the nasal membrane and also the tissue of the lungs. That's why we have those symptoms. But the underlying cause, in many cases, is that we have broken the hygienic health laws and have allowed these toxins to be absorbed through our digestive system from improper eating and from emotional disturbances, and greatest of all, because the soul is in ignorance of the presence of God within it, and that's why we do not act as we should. And so the first, and perhaps the greatest, physical illness is that caused by toxins and poisons being absorbed into our bloodstream with the following symptoms with which we are too familiar. Now, another cause of physical illness is infections caused by bugs, germs. As soon as we're born and get a good little start, the bugs begin to get busy, and the bacteria go at each other. The minute you're born, a pure little baby, the war's going on inside between the bacteria. And when the resistance gets low to breaking of health laws and so forth, and to the allowing of restlessness to go on in your mind and lack of thought control, and greatest of all, forgetting that you and your Father are one, then these bacteria have a field day. And we have the different diseases, such as those diseases caused by definite bacteria. Well, like appendicitis is caused by the streptococcus. A definite cause is there. Also pneumonia. Pneumonia is caused by a definite bacterium, the pneumococcus. And so you can go on. That's the second cause of physical illness. And the third, of course, is accident. An accident is caused by many things. I think we will not necessarily go into that, but a restless state of mind. If your mind is not on guard, that's when the accident happens, especially on the freeway. Just when you're off guard, dreaming a little bit, then it takes over. And every time we come down on Friday night from Los Angeles, there's usually 2 or 3 of them piled up. So we cannot be too careful about taking care, especially of our mental condition when we are driving. It's not necessary to mention drinking. I'm sure that we all understand that that shouldn't be done, of course. But in spite of that, if you still have faith in God and have oneness with Him and know it, you will be free from many accidents. And so there you have the three causes of physical diseases. Now, mental diseases. Mental diseases have a definite cause, and they are due to emotional inharmonies, such as restlessness and lack of control of thoughts and so forth, due to the emotions of fear and anger and worry. If you have the presence of God with you, you will not know worry. But that's beside the point. Mental diseases as restlessness, uncontrolled mind and thoughts. No wonder we have troubles. No wonder the digestive system gets upset through the emotional disturbances that go on within us. That's why I say disease is all related. They are all related. Physical, mental, and spiritual. And the worst disease is the last class of diseases, spiritual diseases, known as ignorance. Ignorance is the worst disease. Why? Because through ignorance we forget that we are one with God. Through ignorance we do not realize that Thou and I, O Father, are one. Thou art mine, I am thine, because of the ignorance of the soul. And there you have the three diseases from which we must be healed. Physical, mental, and the worst one is the disease of the soul. Think, we are one with the infinite Father. He is our Father. He gives us everything. Yet we seem separated from Him. That's why yoga is so necessary. To once more bring back to our consciousness the realization that Thou and I, O Father, are never apart. Thou art mine, I am thine. Now, the first and greatest requisite in healing, remember this now, no matter whether you have to take medicine or not, that's no crime. The greatest requisite is attunement with God. Those of you who come to the Thursday night meeting realize the first thing we say, the main requisite in healing is attunement with God. Attunement with His presence. And if you have this, then no matter what form of healing you are following, His great power through the life force in your body can work, can operate. You cannot be healed even though you take medicine, except it is for the life force, the life energy which is in your body. God is what? Consciousness plus energy. Consciousness plus His power. And that power in you is life energy or life force. Therefore, life force is a very important factor in healing. You can take a dead man and you can stuff him full of food. What happens? Nothing. Because the life force isn't operating. And you can take all the pills you want and the medicines. Unless it was for the life force within you, they wouldn't be effective at all. But that doesn't mean we should disregard medicines. No. Let's be reasonable. Let's be sensible. So, if by ignorance you can banish ignorance by knowing God and His great presence within you, then you can banish the cause of all diseases, physical, mental, and of the soul. Realize that. Ignorance is the worst thing. And if through realizing God is in you, through the following of the practice of yoga and following the eternal truths of life and existence, you can realize your oneness with Him, ignorance will not be there, and you will banish the cause of disease. Now, that disease may not be healed instantaneously, although it can be. But the disease is gone. But there's a lag in the mind, and sometimes the symptoms hang on. But that doesn't mean that you are not healed. Once in a while, God in His greatness heals us instantaneously. Then there's no difference between the cause and the effect. That's all. So when you start and have faith in God and take up a system of medicine or whatever you are following, what kind of healing, we'll come to that in a minute, Realize that God's power is there and that the healing is done in his consciousness. And never forget it. And even though the mind says, oh no, you're still sick, just like a person loses a leg, they still feel the leg, but it's not there. So the healing is gone. The healing has been effective, the disease is gone, but the lag in the mind is there. Pay no attention to it. And you'll soon find that you are well again. These are very important points in healing, which I will take up as I go along. And therefore, if banishing ignorance from our soul, physical, mental, and spiritual disease does not exist, realize that. For how can God's consciousness and his light, how can his light and his love be sick? Realize this. If you get into that light and love of God, there is no sickness. It cannot be sick. How can light and love be sick? You understand? These are very important things. Bury them deep within your consciousness, these eternal truths which our Master has brought us and many other saints. The light and love of God cannot be sick. None of these conditions of the physical, mental, or soul exist in light and love of God. That's the real healing. That's the permanent healing, if you can realize that one thing. Now I have a reference I'd like to read you at this time from our Master, from his book, Scientific Healing Affirmations. And it is a very wonderful little book. I'm having trouble lately in finding my references. I like to give them to you word for word. So, from Scientific Healing Affirmations, all physical diseases originate in mental and spiritual inharmony. There's a connection. If you have a strong mind, you can overcome disease. You can eradicate it. But if you know you and your Father are one, nothing can stay of the physical, mental, or spiritual disease. Ignorance of the laws of mental hygiene and of the spiritual art of living are responsible for all human, bodily, and material suffering. If the mind is free from mental bacteria of restlessness and fear and worry and all those things, if the mind is free from that, and the soul is free from ignorance, physical disease or mental lack is unlikely to be present. These are wonderful truths from that little book of our Master's Scientific Healing Affirmations. Now, let us take up limited ways of healing. Limited ways of healing. Medicines, material aids, massage, electricity are some of the material and limited ways of healing. But remember, behind those ways, which are all right, we must not deny medicine. All right, if that's so, you can eat all the poison you want, it won't touch you. These are facts, these are laws of physical living. And so, medicines, exercises, massage, electricities are limited ways of healing. But why? Because they depend upon the life force which is behind them and is working throughout your body, like I said about the dead man. The food's in him, but he can't utilize it. All right, you take the medicine. If it were not for the effect of that medicine, through the action of life force within you, life energy, you could not utilize it at all. And you could take a barrel of aspirin, they wouldn't do a thing to you. Except poison you, of course. But I mean, it's the life force. That's the activating principle and force in healing, and remember that life force is the cosmic energy of God in you and in me. That's what does it. How do you think you digest your food? How do you think you utilize the different wonderful medicines which have been brought to light lately, the antibiotics and all those things? How do you utilize them? Because of God's power in you, because of the life force in you. That's why you utilize them. And so even though you say, boy, these new medicines, these medicines are wonderful, and I know they're wonderful, but don't forget, they'd be useless without the power of God in you to utilize them. So let's be reasonable and not say, Lord, you are supreme, you take care of me and everything. You can't do it as easily as that until you know God and are one with Him. But you can say, Father, I'm taking this medicine, I'm going to this surgeon or this physician. I know you are in the medicine, behind the medicine, in the life force, utilizing it. I know you're in the surgeon. I know you're in the physician because he's your child. Then it'll work. Then you're utilizing the power of God in those different agencies. And so these things are very important, and let us not forget them. Another thing is this. The cause of your illness may be in the astral or in the causal body. Therefore, you have to go. You have to go. Medicine will not be available, will not do you any available good then, if the cause is deep within you in your astral body and in your causal body. But when you know God and attain attunement with Him, as He is in all the bodies, physical, astral, and spiritual, then it'll work. And then through wisdom, you can override these conditions in these two subtle bodies within you. And so that's why sometimes, even though you take all sorts of medicines, go to all sorts of physicians, the healing does not take place. Because the trouble, the cause, is in the more subtle part of you, in the astral body and in the causal body. Then you have to go to the fountainhead, to God Himself. And as He is in not only the physical body, He's in every cell of the astral body, every life-tron of the astral body, which is the life energy. The little vibrating particles, that's God's presence. He's in that, and He's in the soul of each and every one of us. And the soul, every soul is a ray of the one eternal presence of God. That's why in healing you must go to the fountainhead sometimes to eradicate these diseases and causes which are located deep within us and which we have brought over perhaps from some previous existence. Physical diseases we can handle in an easier way because of the advance in science and medicine and such things. But these deep-seated causes of disease, we have to go to God Himself, and He's the one, because He's the one who has made all things. Attunement with God, remember, in all illness is the first and main requisite of healing. And so, to deny the power of drugs is not reasonable. Otherwise, as I said, let's take a big tablespoonful of poison. It doesn't exist. Don't deny the power of drugs. But this is the drawback. You take certain drugs and what happens? Your system gets used to them. And you have to take something else. You found that out? That's the law. The body begins to be tolerant of different drugs, and so you have to shift it. Same with antibiotics. What's that? We find many side effects from antibiotics. Wonderful things which offset the direct action of bacteria and conditions and viruses and so forth. Side effects come which nearly kill you, sometimes do. And so we cannot stop there. Morphine, one of the greatest drugs to obtain pain. System gets used to it. Then they have to do other things. And so remember, these are the limited ways of healing. The body gets used to different medicines. And so then we have to take some other step. But no matter if we do, we should always remember and never forget that the underlying main requisite is that the life force within us, the life energy, is the main factor in all healing, whether we are taking medicine or not. If we reach the point when we have to have some new medicine because our system is used to it, what of it? Get the new medicine, but don't forget that the presence of God in you as life force and life energy is the main factor. And finally and gradually your consciousness will supersede this physical consciousness, and you'll begin to know that behind the physical consciousness and even the subtle consciousness within us is God's presence. And He's the one. He's the real healing agency is attunement with God. And therefore, reaching this point, the unlimited power of God must be sought, because these are limited ways of healing. And there comes a time when they will not work. Then we have to search out the unlimited way of healing, which is God himself, and attunement with him. Another reference, I like to substantiate these things I tell you with words of the Master. And this is what he said in the same little book: drugs, medicine, massage, spinal adjustment. They're good, especially when the thing is sore, aren't they? When they put a vertebra back and it's sore, you don't forget it. They're all right, they help, but the thing is, the vertebra goes back again and goes out, so to speak. Now, drugs, medicine, massage, spinal adjustment, or electrical treatment may help to bring back the lost harmonious condition to the cells by chemicalization of the blood and the stimulation of certain tissues. These are external methods and sometimes assist life energy or life force to effect a cure. But they have no power to act on the dead body whence the life energy has vanished. No power resides in a dead body that can utilize the properties of medicine or electrical currents. Without the life energy, medicines and drugs have no healing power. None at all. It seems as if they do, but it's the life force behind them, which they stimulate, that causes the healing. It is the life energy alone that effects a cure. All the external methods of stimulation only cooperate with the life energy, the life force, and are powerless to act without it. Life force. And what is life force? Cosmic energy. God's power in us. Same power that digests the food. Same power that keeps us on even keel in many things. That's what we must realize and never forget. And so, the permanent ways of healing are the best. When your communion with God is complete and perfect, then the healing takes place, sometimes instantaneously, as I have pointed out. The cause and the effect are simultaneous there. But other times, you become attuned to God, the disease is healed. But remember, don't think because you have the symptoms that the disease is not healed. It is healed. But the lag in the mind is there, due to habit, and then you feel the symptoms and you begin to say, well, I wonder if the Lord has forgotten me. Now, he hasn't forgotten you. That's the law of mind, and the habit has been formed. And so sometimes the disease is healed, but the symptom remains. So don't be caught in that. To prove this, you eat a half a lemon if you can stand it. I don't know how some people eat a whole one sometimes in the morning. Eat it. Take a glass of water after it. Not with it, after it. Tell me what it tastes like. That's all because of the mind. It won't taste like water at all. So don't depend on the mind. Don't believe it, especially in healing. Now, just a word about Master's Scientific Healing Affirmations, which are very good. A little book called The Scientific Healing Affirmation. It is a very efficient way of attuning the mind to the presence of God within you, by suggestion, by affirmation. And it operates this way. It operates on the definite makeup of each and every one of us. Now, sometimes the affirmation will turn your mind toward God through will. It works through will, imagination, and so forth. A person with a strong will, you cannot work through them by imagination. They don't work that way. Imagination, feeling, and will. These are the ways the affirmation works. Now, if you are a person who has great feeling, you have to work through that by a right affirmation. If you are a person who has a wonderful imagination, you can work through that. But if you are a person of strong will, you must work through that with your suggestion. So, whatever affirmation you take in these scientific affirmations, use the one suitable to you or to the person you wish to help. That's why it says scientific affirmations. They work through your definite makeup, particular makeup, whether it be the predominance of will, feeling, or imagination. They're all right, any of them. But some make the mistake of trying to use an affirmation, the background of which is imagination on a person with a strong will. You've got to give them something to work with. You've got to use your affirmation that has a strong will behind it. And finally, I have one more reference, and then we will close. People with a material consciousness, those accustomed to thinking of the self as the gross or physical body, need first to be gradually trained away from dependence on medicine and other material aids. That is, when they are used to that, don't try to jump away from that. You have to work with them. They will supersede that. They will leave the medicine off. But you have to do it, as our Master says. They have to be taught to rely more on mental power and on realization of the immortal nature of consciousness. Medicine isn't immortal. Material aids are not immortal. Electricity is not immortal. But consciousness is immortal. And consciousness is of God. And that consciousness which you hear me, by which you hear me and see me and listen to me and know things, that's immortal. That's the source of permanent healing, is in consciousness. But, as our Master says, they have to be gradually taught to rely more on mental power and on the realization of the immortal nature of consciousness. Unless the conversion of a materially minded person is brought about by his own increasing inner realization of the true nature of matter, he may become only a metaphysical fanatic, and nothing is gained. A great deal of harm may be done by blindly denying the existence of matter. Such an attitude comes from ignorance of the material laws of God. And so we must act intelligently. And remember the one thing, God's consciousness plus his energy, his light and his love. Can they be sick? Can they be sick in a material way, a mental way, or a spiritual way? No. That's the key to unlimited healing this morning. And so finally, to sum up, let us realize that so long as we eat, why deny the effect of medicine and material aids? We eat, don't we? And we enjoy it. It has an effect on us. It does on me. If I eat too much, I know it. And you all do too. Well, as long as that's so, let's not deny that material means help in healing. And secondly, we should never forget, though, that behind it is the unlimited healing power of God. Even though we use medicine, that's all right, but never forget that behind the medicine is the unlimited healing power of God. And we should not be fanatics in what we do. Extremists. Let's be natural. And the main thing is not to forget that behind all things is the unlimited power of God. It's not a sin to take medicine. You and I have seen people die because they were neglected when some simple thing would have helped them. Don't be that way. And the final thing is meditation. Meditation is the greatest thing. Meditation gives you attunement with God, which is the primal requisite of all healing. Attunement with God. Why? Because God's power, through the exercise of his will, is in every atom of the physical creation, and our bodies are part of the physical creation. And God's power, through the exercise of his will, is in all astral creation. Behind every lifetron, every particle of energy is God's power. And we have a place in the astral universe, and we have an astral body. And finally, God's power through His will is in every soul. And every soul, each one of us, is a ray of the infinite Father. If we but realize this one eternal truth, we will have unlimited healing power.